Welcome. Welcome to the Utah State Board of Education regular meeting. Welcome to the public. Welcome our board members, our staff, all stakeholders. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get going with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I didn't ask somebody as usual. Oh, sorry.
Cameron Draper.
Beautiful. Cameron Draper, is it?
Cameron Draper, yes.
Well, wonderful. I was brilliant in not asking somebody because we have a special guest, Cameron Draper, from Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind, correct? Who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So thank you, Cameron. Tell us to rise.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And new mic system. That's actually a lead into a special guest opportunity we've got from the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. They're going to lead us now or perform. I'm not sure if you want us to join you. It's probably, we're going to watch. But I had the privilege of attending their graduation this year, and they did the Star Spangled Banner in a way that I've never seen done before. And they offered to come here and share that with us. So we're very grateful for them, and we will turn it to them to give us the Star Spangled Banner. The end where
oh, sleep, and you sing by the dawn's early light. For early we hailed at the twilight's gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets break there among birds, singing their gay through the night, and our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Cameron. That was beautiful. Member Wood, did you have comments that you wanted to share? I'm sorry, I know you're saying hi to your folks. Member Wood is part of our committee assigned to work with Schools for the Deaf and Blind, is also a member of their advisory committee, and she arranged this as part of board member comments. So I'll turn it to you.
Hold on.
Sorry.
After watching Cameron and another student do this, I just felt like the board needed to appreciate their talents and the expression with which they shared that patriotism, and just recognizing all that they can accomplish through the support. And so we did it in August. My board member message is not till November, but we did it in August so they didn't have to miss school. So thank you for allowing the time, Chair.
And thank you. And I've told people now that if you haven't seen the Star Spangled Banner sung, you haven't experienced it. It's a different. So thank you again, Cameron. And thank you, Member Woods. All right, board member message. We have Member Bogus. There we are.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to ask Ms. James if she's got everything ready to go. I think you're going to have to share it as a slideshow. I believe if you go up to view and then slideshow, if the little button down on the right doesn't work. It did the same on mine and the projection did not like it.
So while they're working that out, board members, just a brief update. We'll share more later, but red now means that your mic is hot. So remember, red hot. Green means you're in the queue. So we've learned some lessons and we're trying version 3 today. So share more about that in a minute, but just know that if your mic is red, you are hot.
Thank you. Ms. James, is it acceptable for me to just say next? Would that be acceptable to you? Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the public. Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the public as well. It's exciting to see you here. This morning, I'm going to ask us all to cogitate, if we would, on the past 30 years of education in this state. And for many of us, you can probably think back further, but I'm going to ask you to go back 30 years and maybe even fly high to gain a larger perspective. Next. Simplicity is ultimately a matter of focus. And when you are in the weeds, sometimes you cannot see the forest through the trees, let alone see them in their real, true state and color. It is my opinion that this agency, this body, and this institution we call education is in the weeds. The whole system, in my opinion, is in the weeds. And we are trying to be all things to all people and stepping outside of our constitutional charge, which is control and supervision of education. Reading, writing, math, art, music, core academics, nothing more. And so with that, I would like to charge us today, all of us in this room, with focusing forward. Next slide, please. My research last night indicates that as of about 10 o'clock, 94 nations in the world today have still not passed bans on the buying and selling of humans as chattel. 94 nations still allow slavery across the globe. And we live in a country where our students are not allowed to live their convictions in school or in the public square without an all-out assault on their parents and their family traditions. And when these circumstances exist, America is no more free than the nations that buy and sell people as slaves. To that end, I challenge us again to focus forward on freedom. I challenge this body to lead out on the issue of freedom. I ask that we refuse to compromise freedom and that we would focus forward, grounded in the next slide, self-evident and eternal truth. The first and foremost of which is that God is greater than government. Yet it seems that collectively in America today, we have turned government into an idol and tyranny looms over the halls of government. Next slide, please. And ultimately, God's justice will not sleep forever. And that terrifies me. I ask us to focus forward on restoring and preserving freedom. Next slide, please. And so in order to gain that focus, I'm going to ask us to pull out a little bit and engage in what's called an eagle eye view. Next slide. This is freedom. Next slide. This is freedom. Next slide, please. Look closely. This is just a confused bird. Next slide, please. Back up one. This is controlled airspace. Controlled space is different from freedom. Next slide, please. This is organized chaos that becomes less organized by the day. Next slide, please. This is clearly city planning, carefully crafted and viewed from above. It is no secret to those in this room that Salt Lake City is a city on a grid. And while that may prove great for traffic patterns and city planning, it also reminds us, next slide please, that we should not go play on a freeway when you belong on a side street. We have to stay in our lane. Next slide, please. The role of government in education is supremely narrow. When government makes itself a god or usurps the role of family, faith community, or other non-educational items, we see mass chaos. Next slide, please. And chaos causes destruction and requires reconstruction. Next slide, please. I'm going to repeat myself that the role of government education is supremely narrow. And I would ask us to consciously refrain from making the government itself a god, usurping the role of family, usurping the role of a faith community, socializing or non-educational items. Because when that happens, we see mass chaos. Sometimes history has proven that when the government does these things, we see death, genocide, mass injustice. But we also see the death of faith, family, freedom, and the beautiful individual characteristics that each person has. Next slide, please. Through Portrait of a Graduate, some of our SEL programs, and the PK20 pipeline, we achieve workers, not thinkers or creators. We seek uniformity and not diversity. And when the goals that this body has adopted in the past keep moving us toward all children being the same, I think of two things. Next slide, please. I think of a plate full of Christmas treats. Next slide, please. And I think of Mao's China. Mao's China, if you are not a student of history, is one where all people, male, female, child, and adult, were forced to dress the same. Next slide, please. They wore the same clothing. They read the same books. Next slide, please. And Mao's China murdered millions of people. And what most don't understand is that it doesn't matter whether we are dressed different on the outside, but if we are required to conform on the inside, there is no freedom. When in America we cannot conform to our conscience in the public square, we no longer live in a free nation. Next slide, please. And when we all have the same playbook, America is not free. Next slide, please. And so I would ask us to consider that instead of a gallant attempt at cookie cutter kids, next slide, please, which has catapulted us into an era of loneliness, distorted reality, pain, and chaos, I ask that we step back and take an eagle-eyed view at how our policies interconnect and collide. It isn't pretty, and it's easy to get lost if we get in the weeds or we get in the wrong lane. Next slide, please. When you play on a freeway, catastrophic damage can and will occur. Next slide, please. Freedom isn't free. Next slide, please. It's messy, disorganized, and sometimes, just like the desert and mountain terrain in Utah, it collides for insane beauty. And I ask us that we focus forward on freedom and to the ideals that spurred forth American exceptionalism. Next slide, please. American exceptionalism is the unprecedented stability, freedom, and prosperity that resulted from institutions and policies that produced a unique governing philosophy. Next slide, please. Which is small and limited government. Next slide, please. I ask that we, as a collective body, cogitate on and choose to champion and pursue bold and very necessary repeals of both board rule and legislative code. I would ask us to consider the discontinuation of rogue programs that are not in the lane of the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I ask that we choose to be courageous leaders and lead in education by purposefully and tangibly taking tasks, training, and extra time off the plate of our educators. Next slide, please. And in closing, I would go back to simplicity is a matter of focus. Because if we cannot see the forest through the trees, we need to take a time to get an eagle-eye view. And next slide, please. Focus forward on freedom. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. Grounded in self-evident and eternal truth. The second large line item there says inalienable rights come from God, and a government that seeks tyranny will ultimately be held to account. The God watching over Israel is just, and his justice cannot sleep forever. Next slide, please. When we were elected to this board, every one of us took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, which has been a timeless document. It is the longest standing constitution in the history of the world. And so I'm asking us here today to really think about, take a step back, get an eagle-eye view, and next slide, please, and to focus forward on freedom. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Member Bogus. And I neglected one welcome and thank you to our, as we usually call to order, we thank our highway patrol officers, Ryan Gurney and Chris Horick. So appreciate you. Sorry, I neglected the usual welcome and thanks. And in case of emergency use, the 2 west doors leading to the hallway exit the building. So formalities covered. Thank you, Member Bogus. And we move on to our education highlight from Kelsey James, our board communications coordinator.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to invite Ben Rasmussen, wherever he might be hiding. He ran away. He doesn't like the spotlight. There he comes. Ben Rasmussen is among many other job titles and responsibilities he has here at USBE. He is the Utah Military Interstate Children's Commission Commissioner, which is a mouthful to say, but basically it means he heads up the commission put forth by R2 77925 that discusses how schools should interact with military families and military students and set out the Purple Star Schools program. So many of you are probably aware of what Purple Star Schools is. It's basically a recognition of how some schools are going above and beyond and meeting those requirements set out in rule to be extra welcoming to military families and children of those military families. I'm going to show a short video and then I'll turn it over to Ben to answer any questions that you may have or make any comments that you have yourself.
probably one of the most important things we can do as a state and as a community to welcome these families. And this isn't just an issue around Hill Air Force Base. We have military families all over the state that move around as a result of their family service. But the feedback we've gotten through the Purple Star schools, through Davis's military support team, has been overwhelmingly positive in that it's giving the parents a peace of mind that the school is taking the time to understand the challenges that their children are facing and the need to maybe look at them a little bit differently than the child that's been in that same school system for the course of their educational experience. The Purple Star Schools program coming online 3 years ago really magnified those efforts because it drove it to the school level and in getting the schools to engage on a willing basis instead of forced by policy basis to look at how they can better serve children, welcome them into the school, help them find friends, help them find that network, help them find the resources they need to be successful at school.
Patriotism has always been important. So we've always done a lot of things that have really supported, I think, our military students. But this gave us, I guess, a more deliberate direction. Every year we do a Veterans Day assembly, and it's really fun. We invite family members who have some connection to our school, who are veterans, and they get to come and share which branch of the service they serve with or have served with. That's really kind of a neat experience for us too, because we find a lot of connections, and we highlight the children at our school who belong to families of military, and we try to honor them as well because their sacrifice is pretty great too. And we have our students hold the flags and make we call it like an honor, a flag honor trail. And as we show all the flags, all the students, as they're singing patriotic songs, they exit through the flags, through this trail of these historical flags on both sides of them. We have the veterans usually lead the way, and then they continue the trail at the end. And so the students get to walk through the flags and then pass through the veterans and high five them on their way out. It's a neat experience where there's a lot of tears that usually are shed. Afterwards, I usually have the veterans come to me and give me a lot of thanks. They feel it's one of the more touching experiences that they've had, and they appreciate the connection that we're making with patriotism and the support that we're providing to the students and to their children, to their grandchildren. One of the things that our assembly has evolved into is our students learn patriotic songs by grade level. And so when we have our veterans come, instead of having our students come to the assembly and sit on the stage, we have our veterans come and they sit on the stage. And then our students, they perform for the veterans while the veterans are on the stage. So the one grade level will stand up at a time and they will sing their song and perform for the veterans. And the next group will do the same thing until everybody's had an opportunity to do that.
It is lined, both schools from end to end, with flags. The hallways and the entryways are lined with all different pictures of veterans that students and families have provided. So they're able to go through and say, there's my uncle, or there's my grandfather, or my dad, or mom, and grandmother. And they've been asked to send those in if they would like, and have those portrayed and put out on the school, and they're very proud of that. They also prepare the different songs for different grades they will sing. So each grade is so excited to be able to sing and give their thanks to the veterans. And there'll be a luncheon put on, and they will stand. They have the veterans stand and present a gift and honor each branch of the military. They're also allowed to take their veterans back to the classroom, where on a more personal level, after the assembly, they'll be able to ask, and the student will go up with them and ask questions. The class can ask questions to the veteran, and it just brings it so much more personal rather than so distant, and really enjoy that part a lot. It's just a huge honor to show the veterans how much we really care for their service and what they've done, and for their families and what they've gone through as well while they were serving.
I think the Purple Star School is the foundation of that entry into how to better serve military children. It's a great foundation with the programs that it requires the schools to meet, the services it requires the schools to meet.
Receiving this award is pretty important to us. It recognizes that we're putting effort into helping our children. And I've recognized that so many of our children from military families, they have unique struggles because of the necessity of their parents' occupation, their sacrifice, and the parents' sacrifice of being veterans carries on to the children. They put, I see it, they put a big, they sacrifice a lot too. If as a school, we can do something to help them transition and to be more successful, to build connections, we're making a difference. We're supporting. We're showing our appreciation for our veterans.
We'll have families come to the school or express to administration, to teachers, of how personal it is and how it's teaching their child to respect. So when they're out just in general and they see someone that has a veteran's hat on, or any branch of the military, and the student recognizes that on a more personal level and can go and thank them for their service, and just on a daily basis. Or we've also had families say that their veteran wasn't too sure to participate. Maybe their experience wasn't so glorifying, which I'm sure a lot of them are not. But they've attended for their family member, which was a student, because they were so excited. And through the years, they have actually are proud to come. They've changed the way they think as a veteran and know that they are respected when they didn't think they were at first. To be able to accept this award today is such an honor, and we are very grateful to be a Purple Star School.
On behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs, obviously, Governor, who is very much appreciated the partnership of the board and the willingness of Superintendent Ben Rasmus in particular, and Stallings team to work with us as we try and lead the nation in how we serve and take care of military children and military families.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Ben to provide some comments, and maybe Board Member Hymas, you saw maybe he was in some of the pictures from Excelsior Academy. But one thing or two things I wanted to add that didn't make it into the video that Brian and a couple of the members from the state said at the presentation earlier or in July was that Utah is really becoming not just schools in Utah, meeting these requirements, but Utah is becoming the place for the nation to look when it comes to supporting military families and their children. Recently, Davis School District put together a military support team, and within 6 months, that program has gone from 0 to a best practice around the country. In fact, senior Department of Defense leaders, including the Assistant Secretary of Defense and the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, came to Utah to visit our state and learned about some of the efforts in the Davis School District, including the military support team, and it's causing them to look at how they're providing services on a federal level and some of the policies they have. And now they've gone back and tasked their staffs at the highest levels of the DoD to change policies to fit and follow the practice example that Utah is setting. Thank you. Ben?
So I would just just add that we did recognize almost 20 schools this year in our third year of the program in the state. That's equal to the amount we had in our first 2 years. So that was really great. We had about 15 from Davis. We had 3 charter schools, and we had our first school from Jordan District this year. So it's really exciting to be part of this program, and happy to answer any questions you may have about what we're doing.
Board members, any questions, comments? Member Straight? We're getting there. Oh, got to get your button on. I haven't hit your button?
No, he has to hit his buttons. You got to put you have to hit your button if you want to be in the queue.
I had the opportunity to attending one of Davis School's elementaries, Hill Air Force Base Elementary, and it was a wonderful program and celebrating veterans. So that was a great opportunity. I love the way that Davis has really grabbed hold of this and made it effective in their schools.
Member Hymas?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. It was as soon as I found out about these Purple Star schools, I thought, man, this is incredible. We love our military families. I love military families. I come from a military family. And as soon as I got hired on at Excelsior Academy, that's one of the first things that we looked into is, are we a Purple Star school and why not? And so we made that change as quickly as we could. We're in IRTA in Tooele County. I didn't know if we would make a dent or if anybody would take advantage, but as soon as we had the ability to put that on our website, we had military families reaching out. So they're looking, and we're just happy as a school that I represent, and as a state board that I represent as well. Happy that this program exists and that we're helping military families. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Hymas. Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you so much, Ben, and for the Davis schools. Congratulations, and thank you for all that you're doing out there. All right, one more piece of business I overlooked is the roll call. We had a couple people trying to join, but I think we've got everybody. So let's go through that and make sure. So Member Bogus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we need mics.
Yes, sir.
Member Booth?
I'm here.
Member Klein?
Oh, I can't. Okay, so
I need some to turn them off.
Yeah, so you have to wait. You have to wait until your name's been called because we can only have 2 in the queue or it jams it up. So hit it to when your name's called and I'll immediately be able to make you live.
Member Klein?
Good morning. I'm here.
Member Davis?
Present. Thank you.
Vice Chair Earl?
Yes, here.
Member Green?
Here.
All right, Vice Chair Hart?
Here.
Member Hymas?
Here.
Member Carey?
Here.
Member Lear? Member Norton?
I'm here.
Member Reel?
Here.
Member Straight?
Present.
Member Wood? And Member Moss is here. Okay. Back to business. Sorry about that. And thank you for your patience. Again, brand new system. We're piloting it with a good co-pilot working the controls, and I'll try to keep us moving along. So